Hey guys, what is up and welcome back to another day of Vlogmas. Today I have another special guest on Blooming Roses, and as I said from day one, I would be providing the visual version of the interviews for you guys for this Vlogmas. And again, I do want to note that along with the visual version, the audible version will be available on the podcast, Blooming Roses, which you can find on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and wherever else you listen to your podcasts. And if you notice any differences between the video and the audio version, again, that's simply just because if there is a lag or any glitches, I simply just had to edit around those. But when I edit my podcast, I do want to clarify that I do not take out their answers or change their answers or anything like that. I'm simply just taking out the lagged versions or anything that glitches. That is all that I touch when I'm editing the podcast. I do not change or alter anything. So, with all of that said, I'm so excited to introduce you guys to Rachael Lippincott, who is the author of 5 Feet Apart and All This Time. She is one of my friends who I've gotten to know over the past couple of years, and I did an interview with her, a video version of it, a couple years ago, so I'm going to link that video. I believe it was last year, but I'll link that video if you're interested in it. And I've done the book reviews on her 2 books, so I'll also link those videos if you guys want to go and check those out. I hope you guys enjoy today's episode. I know the video format is a little weird because Zoom was just acting up that day, but I hope you'll be able to enjoy the episode and just be able to listen and hear and learn more about her. So, hi Rachael, welcome
Hi,
to
Ashley.
the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Of course. For the listeners and the viewers, this is actually our second time filming an episode for
Round
the
2.
podcast. We had some technical difficulties the first time we had done this, a few months ago, actually. So I'm glad that we can sit down and do this again.
Second time's a charm. I know it. I know it'll work this time.
Exactly. Well, since that time, there have been some changes. A new book has come out for you, but before we start talking about that, do you want to give everyone a quick background of who you are in case they've never heard of you?
Definitely. Yeah, my name is Rachael Lippincott. I'm a young adult author for my first book, 5 Feet Apart, and recently All This Time, as Ashley was mentioning, just came out a little over a month ago. So yeah, that's probably what I'm known for.
And you recently were featured in another book as well. Am I correct?
I was, yeah. I did a short story anthology called Together Apart. It has a whole bunch of awesome young adult authors that kind of all banded together to write a bunch of quarantine/COVID time meet cutes. Yeah, so hopefully it brings some light and positivity to this crazy time that we're all in.
Yeah, definitely. Going back a little bit, what is your history like with books and writing? Like what inspired you to want to become an author?
That's a really good question. Yeah, I think I always loved reading. I think that was really like the initial jump start for me. My mom would like read to me even before I was born. There was like a rocking chair in my room growing up, and even before I was actually fully in the world, she would read to me just like sitting in that rocking chair. And then yeah, so like a lot of time growing up was just like spent in that rocking chair with my mom reading to me, and then yeah, from there, it just kind of, I feel like it happened almost kind of naturally. I remember just carrying around a notebook with me, like a classic marble notebook. And I think in maybe 3rd grade was when it kind of occurred to me that I could possibly be a writer or want to be a writer. I had a teacher that would give me and another student these extra writing prompts just kind of simple stuff, you know, jump starters. Everybody's heard of them, you know, somebody opens the door and ... or stuff like that. And so, yeah, I would do those kind of as like extra homework or even during recess. And yeah, I feel like that was kind of the first moment that I kind of realized that was a passion of mine, and like waned and changed. I went through life, you know, in high school, I kind of had that realization again. And then, you know, you get to college, and for me personally, it was definitely a good time where I was like, what am I doing? And then I sat down in a writing youth lit class with Siobhan Vivian at Pitt, who's a young adult author. She teaches writing youth lit 1 and 2 there. And that was really the aha moment, I feel like, for me.
That's so cool. Do you still carry around like a notebook? Like, how are you inspired to write your stories?
Yeah, definitely. Most times I do carry this small black like moleskin notebook. It can like literally fit in my back pocket, which is really nice. Or honestly, like always addicted to the phone. So my notes, I have literally like 1,000 notes. That's just like general ideas that I come up with while I'm out and about. But yeah, it comes from a lot of things. And, you know, you'll think like, oh, well, like, what if this was a little bit different? Or what if it was like this movie with like this movie, and then you combine them, and like what happens then? Or sometimes it's music, or just, you know, moments in your own life. You know, you'll be walking around, hear somebody say something, or ideas when you're out and about in the world. So yeah, I think from a lot of different places.
I've often heard that some authors like have like a playlist or something that they listen to that helps inspire them. I mean, I have a playlist that I listen to like whenever I'm in different shows or musicals to help me get in the mindset of that character. Do you have a similar way of doing that, of having
definitely.
a playlist?
Yeah, I think music is really huge, you know, and there's that you really love, and you just kind of get into that headspace and you get swept up in the lyrics and the music. And I think a lot of stories do come from just that. You know, you hear those songs and you feel the feeling and the passion behind the singer singing and the music, and you kind of, yeah, I would say a music moment where, you know, you can come up with ideas there and kind of just experience that. Yeah, I do also think, yeah, sometimes when I'm writing, I'll listen to music, not usually like if I have a hard deadline, but if I'm just trying to get the feel of a story, I'll listen to music and just kind of free write, see where it takes me. Yeah, and then I do actually usually create kind of a playlist or have certain songs in mind that I associate with the story that I'm working on. So yeah, that's a really good question.
Before 5 Feet Apart, how many books or short stories or anything like that do you think you had written that you were trying to get publicized, but just it probably won't see the light of day?
As I mentioned, I went to the University of Pittsburgh, and I did work on a manuscript in my writing youth lit 1 and 2 classes. The idea behind the second class was to have like a full manuscript that you can edit and go out to query agents with to hopefully get published. So I feel like that was definitely a strong one. There was also some right after I graduated that I started working on. Yeah, and I mean, like looking back on it now, like good enough, probably like maybe a handful, maybe like I don't think any were good enough to get published, I will say that, but I think like in my head at the time, maybe like how many like short stories and just general stories I wrote starting from when I was very young, more than that maybe. But yeah, I don't think it was maybe until college where they kind of started reaching a caliber that was maybe strong enough to possibly get an agent. And then even now I'm looking back on it. I mean, that's always how it is, right? You like write something or you do something and you look back on it and you're like, what was I thinking? This was not as good as I thought it was. So it's hard saying that kind of introspectively, but yeah, I feel like college was kind of really where I started hitting my writing stride. But yeah.
How did 5 Feet Apart land in your lap? Like, was it something you're thinking about, or how was it approached to you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So as I noted, I went to the University of Pittsburgh, and Siobhan Vivian is a teacher there. She's the one that I've been talking about pretty much this whole podcast, I feel like. Yeah, so I graduated in like December of 2017, and she contacted me in March of 2018, and she said that she publishes her books through Simon & Schuster. She said that there was a screenplay that was going to be made into a movie, and would I be interested in maybe giving it a read and seeing kind of what I thought. So I was given the screenplay and kind of told, you know, the inspiration for the project, Claire Wineland, the desire to raise awareness about cystic fibrosis. And I read through the screenplay and I was just like, oh, like sobbing by the end. And it was just such an incredible story. Yeah, it was just like magic. I was like, I need to do the absolute best I can to write the first chapter. So, yeah, I wrote a first chapter and I threw my name in a hat and waited like a week and a half to 2 weeks. And I was blown away when I found out that I had gotten the opportunity to write the full book.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was definitely a bit of a whirlwind. And yeah, I just absolutely fell in love with the story and the desire to raise awareness about cystic fibrosis and just kind of the meaning behind everything, and all the moving parts of it. So yeah, it was super crazy and a super cool opportunity.
Yeah. How much research went into writing 5 Feet Apart? Because I mean, with cystic fibrosis, there's a lot of medical terms and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Claire Wineland was like, she read every single draft of the screenplay. And I think because of that, there was this incredible basis by the time I had gotten what I needed to write the book, where, you know, like the facts were there, the story was like pretty strong in terms of accuracy. But yeah, from there, obviously I watched so many of Claire's videos. That was like the first phone call that I had with Mickey and Tobias, who wrote the screenplay. So there was that. And then there was a lot of, you know, YouTube, Reddit forums reading about it. And then on top of that, there was a CF nurse that read through my draft to make sure that things were, you know, foolproof, as accurate as we could. You know, it is a fictional story, but there are people that have cystic fibrosis. So it was very important for all of us to just get it as accurate as we possibly could, to give people that had never heard about CF at least just a starting basis to go out and learn more, to get involved, to start raising money, to just know about cystic fibrosis and kind of put it in a spotlight in an accurate way, or as accurately as we possibly could. So yeah, research was definitely a big one.
Did you feel any type of pressure of writing 5 Feet Apart and just of how the CF community would respond or anything like that?
Absolutely. Like 100%. Yeah, I think it was really important for me and important for all of us. You know, we didn't want to romanticize it, to not portray it as accurately as we could. And I think it was really important for all of us to just do the best that we could. And really just the intentions behind it were very pure. It wasn't like, you know, let's write this story just for whatever reason to, you know, have a book and make a movie and make some money. That like wasn't the intention behind it. The intention behind it was to raise awareness. And I think because it came from that very like real and very like pure spot, I think that was just like the backing behind it. And I think that made it into, you know, what it was. It was so important. And, you know, there were many people that weren't happy. Understandably, you know, like I'm not going to sit here and like, that's 100% fair. That's 100% fair. And, you know, it was really important to me to talk to people and get their perspectives, good and bad. And I definitely got that. And yeah. So I think it was definitely really big for me and really big for all of us, for sure.
How has writing 5 Feet Apart and being part of that whole experience, how has that shaped you?
Oh my gosh, that's such a big question.
I'm trying to change up my questions from last time.
No, for sure. It's, oh gosh, in so many ways. I mean, learning about cystic fibrosis, and then I think just like watching Claire's videos, like honestly impacted me so much, you know, just living your life to the fullest and so in so many different ways. Yeah, I think the people that I've met, the people that I've talked to, the people that have kind of given me a small perspective or a small chance to hear about their lives and their experiences. That's so huge for me. Yeah, and then also just, you know, the experience of writing a book and, you know, kind of being able to write stories that I care about and write stories for a living is really big for me, just personally. Yeah, but such a huge change for sure, for sure. And yeah, it was a whirlwind of a process. And oh gosh, yeah, the people I've met, the people I've talked to, I think are definitely the biggest impact on my life since publishing and writing that book.
How did all this time come about? Because you did co-write that with Mickey Daughtry, correct?
Yes, yeah. All this time came about. Yeah, it was Mickey. It's Mickey's heart project. All this time was definitely a story that's been with her for a number of years now. And so, yeah, it was maybe a year and a half ago. I kind of got a call that, you know, Mickey had this story that she really wanted to put out in the world. And I, you know, read through, you know, the first few chapters of it. And I absolutely loved the story. And I thought it was just incredibly beautiful. I love all of Mickey's writing. So yeah, it was really cool. Yeah, I was excited that I was given the opportunity to read it. And then also just excited that they kind of wanted to bring the team back together for another another round. So yeah, it was through that, you know, Mickey wrote the screenplay and then I wrote the book. And then Mickey was, the screenplay was way more detailed and she definitely, this was her story. So yeah, it was very important to me to get it right. And also just to, you know, be honest to the story that she wanted to tell. So yeah, it was a real whirlwind of an experience, and it was cool to work with her on a second book for sure.
When co-writing a book, do you guys have like certain chapters that one will work on, or is there like a certain like a specific like review process that you guys have?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I also think it's different for just like, you know, anybody that you work with on projects or anything. It's a different experience depending on who you're working with. For Mickey, this was her story. So, you know, I would write the draft and she would give me notes on it, extensive notes on it. And yeah, there were also just like chapters, like the ending Mickey wrote just because like the drafts weren't quite hitting the right tone. So yeah, there was just stuff like that. You know, making that she had. And then also there was just, you know, sections and scenes that, you know, she just totally needed to write because, you know, I just wasn't able to ring the bell in quite the right way. I think also after having worked on 5 Feet Apart, I think we just kind of understood each other between mediums really well in a really like cool and honestly, like it kind of got to like a scary point. You know, like I think we just kind of understood each other on the page. Like I knew what she was saying. How she kind of like the feeling behind a scene, what she saw the characters were going through. So yeah, I think we just kind of understood each other and clicked and were able to write pretty smoothly for the second one for sure.
Yeah, I've noticed from reading 5 Feet Apart and all this time, like I'm a picky reader on certain books, and when I was reading all this time, I kept wondering like, am I like really liking this for like what the story is, or am I just like liking it because it's their book, or it's because it has a pretty cover? But as I started reading it and going back
the cover,
yeah, exactly, the cover. I realized that it was the writing style that really stuck out to me, because it's really hard to pull me into a book sometimes, and I've noticed with both 5 Feet Apart and all this time, it would like draw me in, and then I would want to not put it down. And there's only about 3 authors I know who are able to do that. So I really love your guys'
That's
books.
really touching. Oh my gosh, like you honestly just made my day. Yeah, that's really great to hear. Yeah, that's like every writer's dream to hear that from somebody. So
yeah, I loved it so much. I told you this, but for the listeners, I pre-ordered the book and then I got it and then I read it and then I saw on your Instagram that Barnes & Noble, there's like an exclusive
The
version where at the end there's a chapter that featured 5 Feet Apart characters. And I was like, oh, you've got to be kidding me.
all right, here we go again.
Because I'm like,
Yeah.
you know, I love 5 Feet Apart, and I'm just like, I need that chapter in my life. So I went ahead and gave the first copy to my friend because I'm like, I know she'll like this. And I'm like, all right, now we're going to buy the other copy.
Oh geez. Yeah, Mickey wrote the extra chapter, and yeah, I knew she was doing something extra for the Barnes & Noble edition, but I didn't know what exactly it was. Mm-hmm. And then she like sent me the extra chapter, and I had like no idea what to expect. And I was just like freaking out. I didn't know that there were, but like it's hard with the Barnes & Noble edition. They like put it right on the first page. So, you know, no matter what, it's not just like, oh, an extra chapter. It's like an extra chapter with. So yeah, I had no idea going into it. So it was cool to see.
Yeah. So obviously like this past year has definitely been very different compared to previous years. Because I think with 5 Feet Apart, you had gone and you were able to do book signings and such. And obviously you're not able to do that right now with all this time, or even with your new one, Together Apart. How have you been able to like go around with doing that and still make the most of it?
That's a good question. Yeah, definitely different, I think. Yeah, virtual events have begun pretty big. And those have definitely been interesting. It's kind of cool that, you know, there's no like constraints, like you don't have to be in the area in order to like get a chance to see the author speak on their book. Which has been really cool. Also, you know, just also going to other authors' virtual events and being able to see them speak, even though they're like in California or like Alaska or wherever. So that's also been kind of cool to see. But yeah, I feel like virtual events have become super huge at, you know, still kind of having like the book release moment and still being able to, you know, interact with readers and hopefully answer some of their questions and kind of give them some insight into whatever you're working on. But yeah, it's definitely different. Yeah, this year has, I think, been really challenging for a lot of authors, and a lot of like debut authors haven't necessarily gotten like the full experience, which is like really heartbreaking. You know, the ability to like go and kind of all that and sign and kind of have that energy of that moment. Yeah, I mean, this has been a strange year. This has been a weird year for all of us. We're all trying to figure out how to work in this new year, hopefully.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think virtual events have really become super huge.
How has it been? Because I know you've gotten to know some people from when you're doing 5 Feet Apart, and I'm sure you've connected with people from doing all this time. I mean, I have gotten to know you from 5 Feet Apart, and when I first read the book and all that. And I'm definitely thankful to have gotten to know you over since that time. But how has it been like getting to know people in the CF community, or just in general people?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, what a gift to have like interact with people that read your work and were touched by it, or just wanted to have a conversation with you about it. Yeah, that's, I think, honestly, the most special thing is I try my very best to reply to as many DMs as I can, and just like notes that I get through my website and stuff like that. But yeah, it's been really special just getting to meet with people and hearing what they think about the stories and, you know, how it's impacted them. And yeah, there's nothing more special than, you know, putting out a story and having it speak to other people.
What are some of your goals for either for the end of this year or for this upcoming year?
That's a good question. Yeah. I am waiting for revisions on my third book. It hasn't been announced yet, so I can't talk very much about the book, the third book that I'm writing, but it will be coming out in summer of 2021. So someday I'll be able to share what that is.
Mark your calendars.
To edit some random big date. So yeah, so definitely that. I think just finish that and then get started on my fourth book. And then also just, I think, you know, I'd like to draft another story, hopefully, or come up with another story idea that I really love. And just also, I think this is like a tough situation for all of us. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I think creatively it's been really hard for a lot of people
Yeah.
to just like sit down and be able to write. And I know personally it's definitely been a little more tough to, you know, carve out time and not just have days where I'm like, I cannot do anything. So yeah, I think also just like continue with that, be forgiving of myself. And I also would, you know, maybe like to use my time a little bit better in between revision cycles. That would be nice. I mean, when we all like to use our time a little bit better.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's very exciting. But yeah, we'll definitely have to keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, I know. I like want to talk about it, but yeah, I can't.
But you can't, yeah, no. I'm not
All
gonna
in good
pressure you.
Yeah.
What is some of your advice for aspiring authors?
That is such a big question. I honestly think I like answer this differently every time, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Maybe it's just like me learning more, or me. I think like some advice just hits you at different times. Mm-hmm. I'd honestly say just like the most important thing is to like keep trying, you know, keep fighting, keep writing. Writing is hard. Writing can be really hard. Mm-hmm. Not only that, but I think this industry can be super hard, and like there's going to be rejections, and there's going to be writer's blocks, days where you just like sit down and like nothing happens, and there's going to be no's and just like stories that don't work. Like personally, like last week I had like 3 separate story ideas in the same week, and I wrote like 3,000 words of each, and like none of them are going to work. And that's just like the reality of it, you know? Or I guess maybe I should say like none of them will work like right now. And that's just kind of what happens. Like some stories just don't work, and some may never work. And some stories need longer to percolate and get to like kind of the point where that you're ready to write it. So really just keep trying and keep writing and keep sitting down in the chair and keep putting words on the page and keep, you know, trying, even when it's tough.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm the same way with videos. Like this past year, I mean, it's definitely been hard to like stay inspired and creating. Right. And I probably found there were like 20 other videos that I'd filmed this year that were deleted. They were never see the light of day. They're just not going well.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
You know, that definitely happens. I think with a lot of like creative arts minded people. I think the podcast also came out of this year of just wanting to still create, but I just visually couldn't see things really clearly. So I'm like, well, if I can't do visual, let's try audio.
No, 100%. Yeah. You know, that's really great point. Yeah. And I think like, yeah, like absolutely what you just said about like deleting the 20 videos and just kind of my stories last week, where it's just like, I totally was like reaching a point in them where I was like thinking past the like 3,000 or whatever words that I'd written. And I was just like, this is not going to work. And it's like such a bad feeling. It's really such a bad feeling when you realize that. But yeah, this year is hard. And like being creative in general and doing anything like that where you like put a little tiny piece of your heart on the page or in a video or in your work is really tough. Yeah. Just keep.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know what to say. Like that's just sometimes it's tough, and I think this year is tough on all of us. And definitely just like be forgiving yourself when it doesn't work. You know.
Yeah. Well, I think that is a great place to end this episode. But do you have any links or anything like that you would like to share?
Yes. You can follow me on Instagram, or not even follow me. Just, I mean, look at the pictures if you want. At Rachael Lippincott on Instagram. I have a website, rachellippincott.com. Yeah, I'm not really super active on Twitter, so we won't worry about that. But yeah, you can find me there at Instagram and also on my website.
Yes. So I'll link all those in the show notes, and also the different books. I'll put the titles of the books because, you know, there's several places where you can purchase the books.
Awesome.
But thank you so much for wanting to be a part of today's episode.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, this was really fun.
So that is it for today's Vlogmas and for this episode of Blooming Roses. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Definitely be sure to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. And don't forget to rate and comment and share it with others. Again, you can find the podcast Blooming Roses on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play, and wherever else you listen to your podcasts. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's Vlogmas, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye!